Davy Jones was a Wisconsin boy who started in the big leagues in 1901, shortly after he graduated from Dixon College. He played in the majors for 14 years, including 3 World Series with the Detroit Tigers, and in those years he was a member of one of the greatest outfields of all time, Ty Cobb in right field, Sam Crawford in center field, and Davy Jones in left field. I interviewed Davy in Milwaukee. Davy had made a considerable fortune as a druggist. The Joneses, Margaret and Davy, lived in a very nice apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. They had only been married about 15 years. They had gone together as sweethearts when they were in high school. But Davy wanted to be a ball player, and Margaret's father refused to let her see him anymore when he started in baseball because ball players were no good in those days. So they broke up, and later in life, when they were both in their 60s, their respective spouses died. Margaret's husband, the doctor, died. Davy's wife died, and they met each other quite by accident again in their 60s, and they got married. He was a sweetie pie who was always looking on the light side of things. Davy was a jolly elf. Did baseball players then have so much status like they do now? Was it as respectable a thing to do as it is now?
I'll tell you a funny story about that. Margaret and I were sweethearts in the high school. Her family were very religious. And when I got into baseball, they wouldn't let her have anything to do with me. Because back in those days, a ball player was just a bum too lazy to work. And for that reason, we kind of broke up.
What did your mother and father think when you, after going to law school and everything, went and started playing professional baseball? Was that okay with them?
Well, I'll tell you, it was the money factor more than anything else. You see, when I signed with this Milwaukee club, I got a bonus of $500, which if I worked on the railroad, I had to work 6 months.
You jumped to Milwaukee?
I jumped to Milwaukee. And of course, they were jumping back and forth then, that the contract didn't mean anything. No, you see, Milwaukee was in the American League at that time, and that was an outlaw league.
The American League was just forming then?
That's right. That's their first year, 1901. I joined the team in Chicago on a Saturday, and it rained. There was a little Irishman that drove us out, and he had a bell, like a fire bell, on his bus, and streetcars and everything else had to stop for him. He'd go along, and he'd be ringing that bell and go through funeral processions and everything, He didn't care. He just wanted to get us out that park. We sat in the grandstand, and the first time I saw Comiskey, he was down near second base with his pants rolled up and a couple of sponges and a pail, soaking up water around the bases to try to get the diamond in shape to play. That's the first time I saw Charlie Comiskey. He started from nothing, and just got a millionaire just through baseball. Well, anyhow, it rained so that we couldn't play that day, so the next day we played a doubleheader. And the first game we played was probably one of the greatest games I ever played in my life. You see, I'd never seen a major league park. I'd never seen a major league game. Here they come and take me right from the minor league and put the uniform on and put me leading off for the team.
Were you nervous?
No, it doesn't seem to be. And the second time at bat, I made the longest hit I ever made on the ballpark, over the right field fence. There was only one other ball ever hit over that right field fence. Of course, the fences were farther away then. They were half a mile, seemed like.
And the ball was deader.
And the ball was deader. And I made 3 catches in the outfield that every time I come in from the outfield, the crowd just stood up in the grandstand and cheered me. And from then on, I never was a bench warmer, only just when I was hurt or something. 15 years.
Yeah. Besides being a lawyer, are you a pharmacist too?
Yes. I bought this store in 1910. Of course, a lot of the fans, as soon as the game was over, they'd go down to the drugstore and have me draw them a soda, That was great fun for a lot of them. Sometimes you couldn't get the drugstore.
I should think so.
So my business was very, very fine.
What did you name the drugstore?
Davy Jones Drug Company.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I thought you were.
I had 5 stores at one time.
Really?
I made as much money or more than I did playing baseball.
And you went up in 1906, and then
1906.
you won 3 pennants, 7, 8, and 9.
Uh-huh.
How did the Detroit team treat you as you came up to them now?
They treated me fine, but they didn't treat Cobb very good.
Why did they treat Cobb so badly?
Well, I'll tell you, Cobb, he asked for it. You know, Cobb had a rotten disposition. Cobb and Crawford and I had 7, 8, and 9 lower berths. I stood there, and Cobb took a gun out of his pocket, put it under his pillow. Well, I thought, God, that's funny. The guy carrying a gun around with him. Ball player never saw it. I said, what are you carrying that gun for? He says, well, some of these damn Yankees get fresh with me, I'll show them why I'm carrying this gun. And there was 2 or 3 other players stood there, you know, and heard it. They said, well, God, that guy carrying a gun around with him, what the hell? And he was everything for Cobb. He didn't care for anybody but Ty himself. He didn't care anything about his mother, his father. Well, I don't know about his father. You knew that Cobb's mother murdered his father, didn't you?
No.
When we were down there in 1906, Cobb went up to his little town, you know, for the trial. She was arrested for murder. The way the story goes, that he was kind of suspicious of her. And he's supposed to go away on a trip. He sneaked back, you know, and he was looking through the window, and she shot him. She thought he was a burglar. That is the excuse, anyhow. But she was acquitted on that fact. And his life was kind of tragic, thing of that kind, you know. It kind of hangs on a fellow.
Cobb always says that during that spring, the regulars treated him very badly. That they broke his bats, that they threw water on
I'll tell you, they did a lot of dirty tricks on him, but I'll tell you, when we were training there at Augusta, we used to leave our glove and our shoes out at the little room there, right adjoining the groundkeeper's home. And we went out there one day, and Cobb missed his shoes and glove. I think that Killian or some of those guys hit him on it.
Were they kidding around with him, or were they seriously?
Well, they didn't like him. So, well, anyhow, and we went out there, and he couldn't find his shoes or glove. Well, he accused the groundkeeper's wife, a colored woman, of stealing them. He called her a lot of names that he shouldn't have. Charlie Schmidt spoke up, and he says, you're no man. He says, you wouldn't call any woman names like that, even if she is colored. Cobb says, none of your damn business. Smitty says, I'll make it my business. So they went to it. Cobb had scratched Smitty's face, and it bled a little. So the papers came out and said Cobb trimmed Smitty and on this fight. He couldn't lick one side of Smitty, you know. Smitty was a bull, you know. So Smitty, he says, when he read this piece in the paper, he says, well, I'll show these guys down south that he can't lick me. He says, before we get out of the south, I'll show that guy. So nothing was said until we got over to Meridian, Mississippi. We played an exhibition game there on our way around north. So Smitty walked over to Cobb. Smitty said, damn it, I'm going to give you that licking I promised you. So they squared off. Cobb threw his glove down, and Smitty hit him over the left eye, and he knocked him about 10 feet square on his back. And Smitty just hit him this once. So Cobb got up on his knees. Cobb held up his hands. He says, I got enough.
Cobb is always reputed to be a man who made himself a great ball player by hard work.
That's wrong. Absolutely wrong. He didn't. He practiced less, and he worked less than any ball player on our ball club. It was natural with Cobb. Cobb was a natural ball player, and he was looking to take every advantage. As far as condition is concerned, that guy didn't know what it was to train. You know, when we go in morning practice, and we'd come in and, well, once in a while we'd eat a sandwich or something like that. You know what he would eat? A whole apple pie and drink 3 or 4 bottles of Coca-Cola. That would be his lunch. I know that one day he came in late. We'd had our practice, fielding practice, and Moriarty and I were in the clubhouse. And as we were in there, Cobb came in. He had been there to practice all. So Moriarty made the remark. He says, Jesus, it's nice to be a star. He says, you don't have to come to practice rest of us. One thing led to another, and finally they went at it. Boy, and I jumped in between them, and one of them hit me back of the side of the head and pretty near knocked me out. And I really got the worst of it.
Who won?
Well, that's all there was to it. I guess I was the loser. He didn't have anybody on his side at all. I don't think he even had his wife on his side for that. I don't know. He a very immoral guy, chasing the women, God, he wouldn't care who they were. Boy, he had an awful reputation with the women there. We were in Euclid Hotel in Cleveland, and there was two young girls, two sisters, there visiting. They wanted to stop there because they wanted to meet the ball players. Pretty good-looking girls, pretty healthy-looking girls, about 21, 22, something around there. Cobb, I guess, met them. Of course, the house detective was wise to these fellows, going up to this girl's room, So he was up there on the hall, watching. Finally, Cobb went up. This detective asked him where he was going. Your room isn't on this floor. Cobb says, it's not your damn business. They got in an argument, and they finally got into a fight. Cobb took out a knife and cut the guy in 2-3 places. Oh, he cut him bad. The guy was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. He had a hard time getting out of that. Cost him about $10,000. Of course, we get a lot of calls, these hero worshippers, gals call up, want to make a date. A lot of letters and telegrams, everything like that, just like any ball player. And probably back in those days, I was a fairly good-looking guy, too, and carried myself on the ball field, and kind of fascinated a lot of the gals, that come up and watch the players. Right, I'd get stacked of letters, down there. I never paid any attention. You'd get them from high school girls. They'd see your picture on a tablet or something like that, and they'd like that picture and want to correspond with you. From all over the United States, even from Canada. I got them from Canada. I got a call at midnight. I just got into bed. I just got my pajamas on.
What kind of a manager was Huey Jennings? Was he a good manager?
Now, Jennings was drunk pretty all the time. He didn't even know what was going on in the ball field. He didn't know our signals. He'd come out there sometimes, he'd be in a stupor. And he'd raise Cain, and anybody did anything, he'd call them names, and although Jennings never did that but once to me, and I told him if he ever called me that again, I'd knock his block off. I chased him out of a clubhouse in Chicago without anything on, nude.
What?
He was in the shower bath. And he made this remark about me, and I said, "You're a dirty bastard, you didn't call me that." And when I hit him, he started to run, and I after him, run out of the clubhouse, bare naked. The language that he used to some of those ball players. Crawford was going to choke him one day on the bench, He jumped onto Crawford for misjudging a ball. He said he misjudged it, but he didn't. Cobb was the only one that he never ever said anything to, because Cobb would have been like a cat, He'd have jumped at him in a minute if he ever said anything to him. He never said a word to Cobb. He was afraid to.
How come they kept him as manager for so many years?
Well, because the team was successful. You see, he came there in 1907. They won 3 straight pennants. We had a team that every player on the club knew just as much about the game and what to do as the manager did.
Did you ever see Germany Schaefer steal first from second base?
I was on third base and scored the run when it happened.
Really? What was the occasion for something?
Well, here the score was a tie. 2 men out in the 9th inning. Cobb was up to bat. When the first ball was pitched, Schaefer let a yell out of him, and he went to second to draw the throw from the catcher so I could score from third. But of course the catcher refused to throw it. Schaefer let a yell out of him, and he tore back to first like a wild Indian.
From second?
From second, see? And he dove into first, head first, you see, and nobody there, of course. And he did that, to thinking that this pitcher would be confused and would throw the ball over there with nobody there to field it.
What happened?
But nothing. We were all amazed, at the play. Even I was on third, I didn't know what he was pulling at the time. And of course the crowd and everybody yelling and everybody was confused. So the pitcher got in, and the next ball they pitched, he stole second again. And this time the catcher threw to second, see, and I scored the winning run.
He stole second, and he stole back to first, and he stole second.
And he, when he come to the official score, he says, I'm entitled to 3 stolen bases in 1 attempt. But he was funny, boy, oh boy. One day in Cleveland, there was a couple German comedians stopping there. And of course, Schaefer was always mixed up with that kind of gang anyhow. And as a matter of fact, he did get on the vaudeville stage one winter, you know. Schaefer was up in their room, and of course they had all their equipment, their false whiskers and so forth. Schaefer said, say, listen, he says, can I borrow those whiskers? I said, sure. So we went out to the ballpark, and the first time Schaefer went up to bat, he put these whiskers on. I was on first base, you know, and he followed me in the batting order, and I was on first base, and everybody started to laugh and hoot, and of course I didn't know that he had them there, nobody else did. The umpire didn't know what they were laughing at because he couldn't see the whiskers on. Finally, when he got into the box, you know, of course the umpire saw these whiskers on him. He said, Schaefer, go and take those whiskers off. He says, this is no comedy, this is a ball game. Well, he was always putting stunts like that. Yeah, he just kept life in the team all the time, doing something, you know, and cracking jokes, you know, and he was really funny, naturally funny. We were playing in Chicago the first year I was with the team in 1906. Red Donahue was pitching for us, and Doc White was pitching for the White Sox.
Good pitcher.
Yeah, Doc was a good left-hand pitcher. Come the 9th inning, score was 2-1 in favor of the White Sox. A man on first, and the pitcher up turned to bat, who was Red Donahue, and one of the worst hitters in the league. Well, Red used to like to get up there and take his swings, you know, anyhow, you know. So Bill Armour, who was our manager at that time, asked Schaefer if he was all right. Schaefer had been out of the game for about a month, and Schaefer says, yeah, sure. He says, against Doc White, he says, I'd like to hit against him. Donahue was there swinging his club, you know, ready to get up to bat. Schaefer said to Red, he says, manager wants me to hit for you. Red looked at him and says, who in the hell are you going to hit for me? He folded his arms and he sat there, you know, madder than a wet hen, you know, because they took him out and put it in the pinch hitter for him. So Schaefer walked over in front of the grandstand, took off his cap, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, you are now looking at Herman Schaefer, better known as Herman the Great, the greatest pinch hitter in the world. He says, I'm going up there and I'm going to hit the ball in that left field bleachers and win this ball game. I finally turned around and he says, thank you. He walked up to the plate, and of course they all give him the raspberry, you know. He never hit over 2-3 home runs in his life, you know. So the second ball that Doc White pitched, he did just exactly what he said he was going to do. He hit it in the left field bleachers. Well, boy, oh boy, you ought to have seen him. He stood at the plate, you know, until he saw the ball going into the bleachers, and he tore it down to first as hard as he could run, and he slid into first head first. And he pulled off his cap and he says, Schaefer leads at the quarter. And he tore down to second and slid into second. He says, Schaefer leads at the half. When he slid into the plate, he turned around and he says, Schaefer wins by a nose. And he walked over in front of the grandstand and took off his cap and he says, ladies and gentlemen, he says, I want to thank you for your attention. Well, it was one of the funniest things I think that I ever saw in baseball. And of course, it's so unusual today, you know, they think a guy was crazy if he did that. But in those days, you know, you could pull stuff like that, and the crowd enjoyed it. Donahue still sitting there just like a stone image, see? His arms folded, sitting right next to us. He came up to Red. He says, Red, he says, how'd you like that? Not a goddamn bit better than I'd have done myself. Well, the funny part of the whole thing was, we went back to Detroit the next day. The first time Schaefer came up to bat, a fellow named Joss, Eddie Joss, a big lanky fellow with a sidearm dart, and Schaefer couldn't hit him with a paddle. Schaefer came up the first time, and of course everybody in the ground said, "Hooray, Schaefer!" For winning the game the day before. Give him a great send-off. So he took 3 swings and struck out. The second time he came up to bat, of course, it was still a hooray Schaefer, but not quite as much of an ovation as he got the first time. He struck out again. Third time he came up to bat, no commotion at all, no ovation. So we come to the fourth time at bat. Schaefer didn't want to get up to bat again. So Schaefer walks up to me and says, "If you get on that base," he says, "I'm going to bet you over that." I looked at Schaefer, started laughing, and I did get on, see, and Schaefer had to get up the fourth time, see, after striking out 3 times. And of course the crowd then, "Take the bum out." I said, that's the baseball crowd, Take him out, take the bum out. Well, that shows you how quick a guy can turn from being a hero to a bum. And it's absolutely true, every word of it. Now, you'd laugh at this because this is funny. And you would think that anything like this could happen in a major league game. We were playing a game in Pittsburgh, and we had a pitcher, left-handed pitcher. The name was Jimmy St. Brain. This is when I was with the Cubs. Jimmy was a left-handed pitcher and a right-handed hitter. And he couldn't hit a foul off these pitchers, the way he hit. The manager, Seeley, says, "Jimmy," he says, "why don't you turn around and hit left-handed?" He says, "You don't even make a foul hitting right-handed. You can't hit right-handed. Turn around and hit left-handed. See what you can do." He was a good pitcher. He had a lot of stuff, and boy, at the bat, he was a mess. Well, anyhow, he turned around, hit left-handed. And darn if he didn't hit the ball. He hit it down to Wagner. And instead of run to first, he run to third. No, you wouldn't think that could happen, but if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it either. Well, I asked Wagner after that. I says, "Well, when you saw that guy running to third," he says, what did you think when you were going through?" He says, "I didn't know where to throw the ball because he had me all mixed up too." We had dumb guys, crazy guys, and we had well-educated guys. We had a different assortment. It's just like any walk of life. You take any profession. You take a bunch of, say, 50 lawyers, and you'll find all kinds of guys among them. Some are dumber than the hell, and others are smart. Doctors are the same way. Half of the doctors that are practicing today are just a lot of quacks. I'd get prescriptions from some of those doctors that I wouldn't even fill. A lot of them are dope fiends, but there are some fine guys and some good doctors, and I really depend on them a good deal.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
It's just like ball players. You'll find good ones. Now you take Matheson, was a prince of a guy, smart as a whip. He was a well-educated fellow, high-class guy, and a great pitcher. Boy, oh boy. One day in Chicago, I'll never forget it as long as I live, I was up to bat with 3 men on bases and 1 run to tie, and I never saw such pitching in all my life. He had a nice curve, and then he had that fadeaway ball. That was his favorite. But of course, I was over the plate, looking for that fadeaway. But that with 3 men on bases, that guy pitched me 5 curved balls on that inside corner, and I couldn't do a thing with them but foul them, every one of them. 5, one right off the other, and every one was a strike. I never saw such perfect pitching in all my life as he did that day.
He didn't have such terrible speed, did he?
Well, he was pretty fast.
He was.
Oh yes, he wasn't nothing like Johnson or Waddell or a pitcher like that, or Cy Young. But he had good speed. He was fast. But old Cy Young,
Yeah.
Cy, tell his story about Cy. I was always bunting on him because he was a rotten fielder.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's a big, clumsy guy, and I'd have him crazy, bunting on one side and on the other. He never knew what to do. I would lead off this game, and bing, and I hit it back at him and hit him on the ankle. And the ball bounced out in left field. Well, Cy jumped and he grabbed his foot, and he whirled around 2 or 3 times on one leg. And oh God, I run down first base laughing my head off at him.
Of all these pitchers that you saw, which one is the best pitcher that you did?
Oh, I'd pick Johnson.
No doubt about it.
Oh, there's no question about it. And I hit against most all of these good pitchers too. Walsh and Joss, Vic Willis. Boy, he had the biggest curveball I ever saw.
Are there any pitchers at all around today that can compare with those pitchers?
Well, I would say that Kopech would compare pretty well with Rube. Because Rube, boy, he was a big, powerful guy. And boy, when you had that ball like that big around when it came. But it's a funny thing. He couldn't beat the Detroit team with all that stuff. This was 1907. They sent Rube ahead to Detroit to rest up. Rube was registered at the hotel, but nobody knew where he was. They couldn't find him. He wasn't in his room, and they didn't know where he was. Well, about 10 o'clock in the morning, there was a guy came in from Orchard Lake and told Connie Mack that they thought that Rube was out there fishing. Connie hired a car, so they went out to Orchard Lake, inquired out there, and they finally saw a boat out in the middle of the lake. It was anchored out there, but apparently nobody in it. So they thought, well, gosh, maybe he's in that boat out there. So they took a chance. They got another boat, and they rowed out there, and sure enough, here Rube was stretched out in the bottom of the boat, sound asleep, an empty bottle of whiskey and a little string of fish. This was about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. The sun beating down on him, and here he was sound asleep, they said, in that boat. They finally got him, and they brought him in, and he pitched a corking game. We only beat him, Donovan beat him 2-1. Yeah, we had a tough time beating him.
How good a pitcher was Rube?
Oh, boy, he had the stuff. Gee, Whitaker. Boy, he could burn him through there.
As fast as Walter Johnson?
Right? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think he was quite as fast as Walter. Still, the old Rube had an awful lot of speed. He had a better curveball, a sharper curveball than Johnson did. Johnson was more of a bender.
But the best you saw was Walter Johnson.
Boy, there's no question about it. As a matter of fact, I was the first big league player he pitched to. I always was the leadoff.
Yes.
That was my specialty.
So you were the first big league player Walter Johnson ever faced.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that fastball coming in there? Did he strike you out?
No, I hit a ball, I guess, down to the shortstop, and they threw me out, although I never did have too much trouble with Johnson. No, Walter was a grand fella, one of the nicest guys I ever met.
Did you ever see Willie Keeler play?
Keeler? Oh, a lot of time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was he as good as they say he is?
Oh, yeah, a corking player. Little fella.
Yeah.
And he'd chop up, he'd hit this way. He wouldn't hit a ball. I don't suppose he ever made a home run in his life, but he could hit him where they ate, as he used to say.
Yeah.
I hit him where they ate.
Where would you put Willie Mays among the great outfielders?
Well, Willie Mays, of course, is a great outfielder. He's a great ball player. There's no question about it.
Would you really rank him up?
I would rank him with Speaker. With a competitive player, I'd pick Hal Chase.
Not Ty Cobb?
No.
Now that surprises me. Hal Chase?
No.
Was he a great first baseman, as they say?
He was better than they say. he was the greatest competitor I ever saw. It's a funny thing. I made that statement to newspapermen, and it printed. And of course, a lot of them would say, "Well, gee, you played with Cobb and against Lajoie, and you played against Wagner, and you played against all of these fellows, and you've seen all of them play. Well, why would you pick Chase?" Well, for this reason, that guy could make plays on that infield that nobody else could even come close making. He would bounce around that infield like a rubber ball. When he played first base, he'd play right field. then beat you to the first base. When the first time we saw Chase, he just joined the Yankees, and Cobb hit a ball down along the foul line, back of first. Chase went over and he grabbed it and back to first, and he beat Cobb to the bag. Cobb came back to the bench, and he was almost crying. He stole this base hit away from him. He says, lucky kid, did you ever see such a lucky guy? God, the guy wouldn't make a play like that in 1,000 years again. He says, and they had to make it against me. He started crying, The next time he came up, Bush was on first, and Cobb hit a ball down to his right, when it started out into right field. Chase goes out there and he grabs that and down to second and back to first, and he had a double play on it. Cobb was fit to be tied. Stealing 2 base hits in one game over him that way. Cobb came on, he was sitting in the bench. He's sitting there with his head down, and finally he raised his head. He says, I don't think that guy is lucky. I think he's a damn good ball player. And I used to try to pull bunts, and you just couldn't pull anything on the guy. He would just outguess you all the time.
That's a funny thing, because there's always been this question about Chase's honesty.
Yeah, he was crooked as hell. That was the main thing against him. That's the reason that everybody was down on him. He was sent from the Yankee team on that account because he was cheating the players, and he cheated in cards and dice. He had loaded dice, and he'd do anything. Oh, he's just a crook. He was mixed up in that Black Sox deal.
Yeah.
He would take money to throw games when he was with Cincinnati. Chase died a miserable life too. And I felt sorry for the guy. It's too bad, that a guy, a great ball player, well, even Cobb, Cobb could have been an awfully popular fellow. But, boy, everybody despised him. His personality was rotten. Cobb was looking out for himself. One year, we started out, I don't remember what year it was, 1910 or 11. Both Crawford and I was hitting like fools, to starting off in the spring of the year, and he was in a slump. He wouldn't talk to either one of us because we were hitting and getting in the limelight, and getting the publicity, and he wasn't getting it, and he wouldn't talk to either one of us, either on or off the field. Playing by the side of 2 fellows like Cobb and Crawford, you're a good deal like a member of the chorus in a grand opera where there's 2 prima donnas.
Yes, I can
they
imagine.
They get in the limelight, you see, and they get the publicity and so forth. But everybody has been good to me, and I've had everything that I wanted, and I've enjoyed life. And baseball, of course, give me the help when I needed it. Independently wealthy, I've got everything. I'll never be able to spend the money that I got. I lost a lot. I lost pretty $1 million during that crash in 29 or 30. Oh, God, I pretty went to the bottom. But I've lived a very wonderful life.